Sally, I'm resting in my arms. Don't you think you want someone to talk to?
919. Welcome back. Tim Lee back in the studio. You've had a couple of busy months. You've been back here on the show a few times and filling us in on some really ambitious fundraising goals that you guys seem to really have done well with. It's been a big year for you guys now, Riverbend Christian Leadership Academy. I also saw that you're moving.
Yes. Yeah. So I couldn't hold it to drop it on you in studio like I've dropped the last couple things on you because obviously we're on a bit of a time crunch. In fact, we just delayed our start a couple weeks.
Oh, wow.
To after Labor Day, which for me is like, yes, I'll take 2 extra weeks of summer, but that's where I grew up on the East Coast. That was pretty
normal,
par for the course,
yeah.
And we ended a little bit later with graduation. But starting a little bit later so that we could get legally our deals in place for our new location in East Alton.
Really cool. Now, where are you going to be at in East Alton?
So the facility was formerly St. Kevin's Catholic Church, I believe, and they had a school there. A number of years ago, Riverbend Calvary Chapel purchased it, no relation, and we have just a lease deal with that church to operate a church at their facility, and we think and obviously it's a good deal for both us and for them. They've wanted a Christian school there, but starting a Christian school has its challenges. And so we have been working on this. To some people, it's a surprise, like, wow, this is out of the blue. For me, I've been working on this and with Pastor Steve there really for 2 years.
Yeah.
And okay, is this a viable option? Could we do it in the future? Do we need to do it? And as we've talked about before, separating the relationship between Mississippi Valley and Faith Baptist Church has been the end of amicable in most ways, in all ways, I would say, but of a 50-year relationship. So separating properties and bank accounts and leadership and all of those things is just, it's often a messy process, and it doesn't have to be, but you still have to navigate it.
Yeah, and it takes time. And now that you're here, did you expect this kind of portion of it to go as the way it did, where you're, a couple of months out from school starting and boom, we're moving into a building?
Well, I wish I had more time.
Right.
I wish we could have gotten some of those things done sooner, and that's always the case. But as anybody who's made these type of transitions knows, it doesn't always go exactly to plan.
Right.
And so, we would love to have a couple extra weeks, but it is what it is, and I think we're making great progress to make the move.
Good. And now we're here now. And now when does school officially start for you guys?
September 2nd.
Okay. And now in the meantime, you are also running a campaign because the building does need a little bit of work done to it. And honestly, probably not near as much as the other building that you were in needed.
Different work.
Yeah.
Different work. And so it's kind of it's like selling your used car and buying another used car. Like you already know what all the problems are with yours, and you're buying a new one. So it's kind of that idea. And there are some challenges that we have to overcome. But from the optics standpoint, when you drive on the campus, you're like, oh, this is a school.
Right. Right.
When you go into the building, there is a wing that is dedicated to the school. It is not kind of the piecemeal that we have had, and again, functionally it worked.
Right.
But especially from a comfort level of new parents and new families, which again, we're still enrolling and open to those conversations and even tours of the facility. As the new parents are coming in, what we want them to do is walk through and have that confidence in our facility as much as the education we're delivering.
Well, that's a big first impression, really is how are you taking in the space? And with it, how many classrooms did you say are in this building? So
we have 8 traditional classrooms, and they're very good size. Even if we were at capacity, the classrooms are approximately 28 by 36, and then there's a couple bigger ones that are 28 by 45. So it's a lot of space for us to spread out and have kind of that multi-dimensional teaching where here's some classroom work, but here's some other pieces that we can add in and still in that same space.
That's really cool. And now, how do you do your grade levels again? Because I've just familiarized myself with it because I forgot, to be honest.
Right. That's okay. So some of them are combined, and we've done that really for decades with success. Oftentimes, like for instance, the first and second would be combined.
Gotcha.
Third and fourth would be combined. Fifth and sixth would be combined. And the teacher is teaching both of those. There's benefits to that in that you're kind of getting a little bit of prep for next year, what's coming. But then you're also getting a little bit of review for last year, what happened, and to integrate some of those. And most of the distinction is probably English and math that are more building. History, science, a lot of that is repetition and growing that knowledge base year over year.
That's cool.
And so we have separate math and English classes specifically.
Interesting. Well, and now getting back into the building, the first big one's the HVAC upgrades that you're going to need, which is going to be the most costly, I would imagine, out of all of it. And now where do you sit on that, and how's everything looking HVAC-wise?
So we have some bids on what it's going to cost to do that install. The church obviously wasn't operating the school wing for many years, and over 10. And so when they had some heating cooling issues with their facility, they replaced the boilers with new boilers for the space that they were using.
Makes
and so
sense, yeah.
Not the space that they weren't using. So that's where we're coming in. And again, we have some bids. We think that we can get it done quickly, provided we could raise the money.
Yeah.
And with that, the total that we're trying to raise right now is $80,000. And we have a $20,000 challenge grant. So the first $20,000 that comes in will be matched dollar for dollar towards these HVAC improvements.
Really cool. Well, and now, is it one of those things where you need this done before the school year starts, or
not necessarily?
Okay.
Obviously, we would like to do that. We have fans. We have
just to get a timeline for you. Yeah.
And again, this is some of the nuance when you are dealing with a 120-year-old building. Some of the windows don't open and close.
Yeah.
Now, we've had air conditioning put in, like the window units put into the classrooms at the other location. But this one, we can open the windows. We can run the fans.
Right.
We can do those. We can also still have heat days if there's days that are sweltering hot and it just doesn't make sense from a safety standpoint.
Okay.
But I would also say, too, delaying our start a couple weeks pushes us towards the cooler months as well. So we have a little bit of time, but obviously we want to get it done as quickly as possible.
I just want to make sure in case you had a timeline for this so we can raise the money as quick as we can. And honestly...
Okay, this week.
Yeah, let's do it. See, Tim, that's what you got to do. Tomorrow, we need this in. $60,000 to $65,000, and that really is a great price for that large of a space for a new HVAC system. That's pretty good. And then security is going to be another one of your priorities with this fundraising campaign.
Right, so some of these pieces are already in place, but we want to do the necessary upgrades to really be providing the best that we can.
Yeah.
And even moving to the new facility is somewhat better. Because, for instance, you walk into the first set of double doors, and now you're kind of inside.
Yeah.
But then there's another locked set of doors, that type of thing. We're already have some good pricing and ability to put in kind of the key card access things, as well as cameras, so that we can kind of buzz people in and see who's in the building. Those things. We have some of that was ours from the previous building that is going to be transferred over and is being transferred over as we speak. But we want to make that. It was things we were looking at to do in our other facility.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like time, money, and importance. Where does this fall? Well, moving into the new facility, some of the other problems we had are solved. So now we bring this up.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, and honestly, it's great to do. And now when it comes to campus networking, that's going to be another factor into the fundraising too. What are you looking to do on that realm?
So I will be honest that this is outside of my personal
Same here. I don't
toolbox.
know too much about this.
However, we have some people that are in place as far as just running your basic access. There is already internet there, Wi-Fi, but we want to separate that out and have those that do know IT stuff. We want to have the control of our own so that it's not open access to other folks outside of our organization.
Gotcha.
We're going to run our own things and then control our own access to the internet for students, Wi-Fi, all of those things.
And now what's the contingency container on here?
There's always overruns.
Gotcha.
That type,
Okay. Just want to make sure. That makes sense. But I like that you're budgeting that in, though, and taking that into account. It's good to note that.
Well, and that's probably a bigger change that goes unnoticed and doesn't really get promoted or pushed out there as much with this move. And again, this is really technically our first year as RCLA, we have a zero-based budget.
Yeah.
That's usually not done because, well, it's tough to do, number one. Number two is that others that maybe have government funds that come in maybe aren't as tight on what they have to do or can't do.
Makes sense.
But for our purposes and trying to move away from what we've had to do before. Like last year, we raised $230,000 for the school year.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But we never want to be in that position again.
Right.
It was we had to do it, and the Lord met the need in, we believe, a miraculous way. In this case, we've had to make some cuts. We've had to back down. A big part of this move is we don't have nearly the utility costs. And for us, that's money going right out the window, literally in some ways. Rather, those dollars can be spent towards the children, towards the education, towards the teachers, towards the classrooms, all of those things. And so that's a big part of it is our utilities are going to be significantly less. There were a lot of maintenance costs that we were absorbing over at the other location. Yeah. And so we can take those out of our budget as Calvary Chapel has said, hey, we're going to maintain our facility. We're going to do these things, which would be expected, but we're going into, again, dividing and pulling that relationship apart is just so challenging that, well, yeah, of course the school takes care of the school's facilities when it's Faith and Mississippi Valley at two different locations.
Well, and see, now that's where I find it interesting too, because with the 50 years, you have folks that are very, tied into the values of Mississippi Valley. Has that been, of any concern or any type of conversation? Have you gotten folks? Because I'm sure I'm not putting you on the spot. I hate if I'm doing that. It just seems like that has to be of some difficulty for you to say, we aren't changing the wheel, so to speak. We're just evolving and trying to stay current here.
Yeah, and the phrase that's usually used, CJ, is that I don't support the direction of the school. Now, that means something to those who are saying it.
Gotcha.
And if they don't know, then they don't know, and that's probably better. I would say in some ways, yes, we are changing the direction of the school. We're changing it to a biblical direction of biblical roles and responsibilities. And we've talked about this before, but we'll say it again and again. And every time we come on, we'll say it again. What are the biblical roles? The biblical roles are parents. Parents are supposed to be raising their kids. It's not my job as an administrator, as a head of school. That's not my job to raise someone else's child.
Right.
Pastors need to pastor their church. Now, as part of faith and a ministry of faith, those lines get skewed. Are we a church? Are we a school?
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right.
And so we're not a church anymore. And even in putting the legal documentation together with Calvary Chapel, Riverbend Calvary Chapel, is we want to make sure we make those clear lines that we are renting and leasing your space. Yeah. You're your church. We're the school. Despite having Riverbend at the beginning of both of them. Theirs is Riverbend and ours is Riverbend. But that was not planned. And then finally, that churches need to teach sound doctrine. And as we know, churches can't agree on what that means entirely.
That's very true.
And so there's an authority piece here where if I undermine your church, then I undermine your pastor, and I undermine the parent that chooses to take their family there, whether that's in music or dress or Bible or standards or whatever those other things are. And we don't want to undermine any authority base that God has put in place. So we want to come alongside and assist parents raising their kids for Christ and with a biblical worldview and in a Christian environment. Now, we have said that over and over again, and even historically, whatever advertising and forward-facing things we've talked about, we have put ourselves out there as a Christian school. And while we believe that's important, what we have passed up on is the opportunity to say we are also providing arguably, the best education in the area, in that our ninth graders, according to Iowa testing, test at college readiness. And so 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, they're only becoming more college ready because they're already testing at that reading, math, English. Not every student individually, but universally. That's how they're testing. And that's a testament to the education that we have provided starting all the way at the beginning through the elementary, middle school, and into high school.
It's such a good point. And I mean, especially too, you have to find a way to evolve. And everyone does.
Yeah.
And you're right. There's so many different disconnects that have to come into that when you're dealing with, trying to make sure that you're upholding your guys' values and not stepping on toes, and the relationship and walking that line. And then, like you said, making sure that you aren't just a babysitter for, parents, and making sure that they're a part of this too and raising their kids. And like I said, I didn't understand the disconnect because I kind of saw something. It wasn't a lot. It was just kind of like, well, this doesn't make sense. And I'm like, why doesn't it make sense to you? This is a great move. You're evolving. You're taking a next step forward. You guys are developing new principles. You're bringing in new faces.
Right.
And that's really important.
Yeah, and we've really expanded the team. And again, we have gotten a little smaller to get a little bigger.
Yeah,
which happens in any type of startup situation. But we have solidified our teachers as well as our board, and so those are moving forward. The last piece I would say in regards to the direction, is number one, we focus on 2 Timothy 2:2, which talks about a discipleship model, and we want to build that into our program and do that well. We want to take Acts 1:8, where it talks about Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the uttermost part of the earth, that we are incorporating that into how are we reaching out and not just absorbing in.
Right.
And then the last piece I would say is John 17, where Jesus prays for unity for his disciples. He's about to head to the cross, and he prays for protection for his disciples and oneness. Then he goes on to pray for future believers, that they would have unity. And so that's what we want to do, is unite where we can unite. One of our local pastors talks about this regularly. He says there's some closed hand issues that I believe that, I'll fight about, I'll die on that hill, that type of thing. But then there's some open hand issues as well, that we can disagree or we can have a discussion about it. I'm not going to die on that hill.
Right.
I'm not going to separate from you, from being your friend, if you don't think that Melchizedek of the Old Testament is a Christophany, in that Jesus himself is appearing in the Old Testament. Maybe, maybe not. There's a lot of reasons to think that, but it doesn't have to be an issue that we have to divide on.
Right. No, totally. And honestly, that's where I love where you guys are going with the school and going with everything when you go into it, because honestly, your move is perfect. Where you guys were, it was I couldn't imagine the cost to maintain the building, and because it's a historic building and it means a lot to a lot of people, but it also was about just where we're at in today's society. It's not cheap to cool these things off anymore. It's not cheap to maintain them. So to be in East Alton, I think, is a really welcome site, because I don't know of a lot of, maybe I'm wrong, there's not really that many parochial schools in that area, from what my understanding is of it. I'm not too...
Yeah, I would say there's...
private.
There's a couple over there. There's one that's fairly decent size.
Is there?
I'm not going to give them
any plug?
The free plug.
Okay.
And there's another learning center over there that's a little... So, I mean, there's a couple, as I'm kind of thinking locationally, that are there from a private education standpoint, but again, not like we're moving in next door.
No, and that's what I'm saying though. It seems like you guys have a nice spot for this, and you're more in an involved area than being out on seminary.
Right, and of course, this is the visionary side of me. I'm not giving up on seminary. I would love to see us be able to grow in a healthy way.
Oh yeah,
and potentially come back and move back.
Yeah,
maybe even have both. But that's another day. That's another project. That's another 2 to 5 years of personal misery of me trying to figure those things out.
Well, CJ, how do I donate to this? Well, here's what you're going to go to do. You're going to go to RiverBend.Academy. You have the coolest website name. I don't know how you got that one. That is pretty cool. RiverBend.Academy. There's Pat. And you go to projects tab right over here. You see that little drop down. It'll take you right back to the screen that we're already on. And you can hit this little donate button. Take you right down to where you can go. You can also go see the project mission. You can see that matching gift challenge. That first 20,000 is doubled once it hits its goal, and you can see how the gifts are going to be used, the budget, the timeline. Now, we moved the timeline up to tomorrow, so we got some money to raise, but we're going to get there.
Sounds good to me.
Tim, what else should we talk about for right now?
Let's see here. We talked to everybody. I would say this, and this is something we've begun to discuss in our board already. One of the great things that we have as we're implementing people on the board is a partnership with Herzog Foundation, which helps Christian schools with best practices and high-level training. They have they're out near Kansas City, Smithville technically, but about 5 years ago, an individual passed away, and he left $350 million to transform Christian education in America with a 20-year window. So $350 million to spend in that time frame. And what they decided very quickly was they weren't going to do buildings, they weren't going to do grants, they weren't going to do anything, but they were going to give high-level, like Fortune 100 training to Christian organizations. Wow. And so with that, I would, if you are a Christian organization, I would recommend that you take advantage of that, because your only skin in the game is to get you or your staff there. Yeah. They'll put you up in a 5-star hotel. They'll feed you 3-square meal, catered meals. You might have one meal that you're on the hook for on your own, but really it's just the travel to and from, 3 or 4 day high level training, and we've already availed ourselves to that. One of the things that we took away from the board and governance training that our group went to is that as a board, we need to be planning for the next 50 years, not today's constituents. Yeah. And that's kind of hard to like take that disconnect. But if we're looking 50 years, what does education need to look like then in 2075? Mm-hmm. Well, with the advent of AI and all of these other pieces coming in, like we don't know. But it needs to be how we're making our plans. Mm-hmm. If you're going to truncate that a little bit shorter, okay, so a kid coming into first grade, we have them for 12 to 13 years. Right. Okay, then what does education look like in 2038? And how are these young people prepared for life? Right. That's who we want to be. That's what we want to do. There's so many things that we all ask. I've heard others ask, like, boy, it would have been nice to know how to do taxes. Mm-hmm. It would have been nice to know how to do basic auto repair, whatever those things are. That's the kind of thinking that we're trying to do as a board and preparing for the future, not just today. How do we make sure that we're as secure as we can? Yeah, that's important. How do we make sure that we're providing the best education? That's important. And we put people in place on our board to handle those pieces from a chair standpoint. Really cool. Well, Tim, it's always great to talk with you. And for more information, RiverBend.Academy. That's RiverBend.Academy. Best of luck with the school year starting. And I know that this campaign is going to be a good one for you. This is really cool. Yeah, and we invite everybody to come and see that's interested in partnering with us to raise your kids for Christ. Mm-hmm. There is a cost associated with it, but we believe the value that you're getting is far more than the cost. And so we'd love to have those conversations and see if we can partner with you. Absolutely. Tim, always great talking with you. Thank you, CJ. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and wrap up the 9 right after this.